You are listening to the National Gang Center podcast, Voices from the Field. In each episode, we hear from experts and go in depth about their stories and experience with addressing gangs and communities. This program is supported by the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. The points of view and opinions expressed within do not necessarily represent those of the U.S. Department of Justice.
Welcome, I'm Sean Baldwin with the National Gang Center. This episode is for those working in intervention, and it will focus on elevating youth voices. Our guest is Marcel Martin, who works for the Center for Hope in Baltimore, Maryland. The Center for Hope is an Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention grantee that is supported by the National Gang Center's Training and Technical Assistance Program. Marcel coordinates the Kuji Youth Radio program and is using podcasting as a prevention and intervention strategy for middle and high school aged youth that are exposed to the trauma of community violence and gangs. He's taking a really unique approach at providing an opportunity for youth to find and develop their voices, and we wanted to share his vision and the lessons that he's learned while developing and piloting this program. Marcel, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you for having me. This is great, Sean. Thanks.
Yeah, so before we dig into the actual podcasting, tell us how you got involved in intervention work.
Oh, you really want me to go back that far?
Yeah, okay, I do.
Well, it started, my background, I went to school for recording engineering. So I was always into music, and that was where everything started. Once upon a time, early 2000s or so, a friend of mine says, hey, would you want to come and make some music with the kids in the school? So I started there. And eventually I started seeing the advantages of youth being able to have voices. It started off in writing music and songs. And then eventually, when the Center for Hope came to play years later, they know the work that I was doing in the community and brought me on board to kind of take what I was doing with the music, but put it in podcasting. And come to find out, it's a killer formula to get youth to speak their minds and their hearts and what's going on in their lives. So it really started just from a passion within the arts, and just a general passion in the arts, and it grew into a passion for youth. And then noticing that there's evidence that's coming out that, okay, this is really helping them. And I just kind of committed my life to it moving forward.
So how long have you been working with youth through the Kuji Youth Radio program?
For this program, it'd be almost a year. In April, it'd be a year.
Awesome. So how do our intervention specialists are always interested in how youth are referred to your program? How does it work for the Center of Hope?
Yeah. Well, recruitment is definitely one of the biggest challenges, as they know. With recruitment, it's really important to have solid partnerships in the community, people that are from that community, that's been there for years, that have kids there, family there, grandparents. You want to have 2-3 generations of connections within that community. In our case, we work along the gang intervention organization, and they already have relationshiip in the schools, and some of them even work in the schools during the day, and they might do gang intervention in the evening, or identifying different organizations and nonprofits that's associated with your local schools. Just, it's important to just find the partners, find the people who are already dealing with these youth that might even know their parents, that might have went to school with their parents. So the partnership is very important to kind of, so you want to gain that immediate trust. So what we do is lean on those local community organizations and say, okay, who do you have that would be interested in this? And then we start there.
Yeah, so you figured it out. We tell everybody partnerships is everything. You're only as strong as your partners, and that's so true. So why podcasting? Of all we've worked with programs that do sports, that use all kinds of tools for intervention, but why podcasting? It's a little unique.
Man. Yeah, well, podcast is, as we know, throughout the pandemic, podcasting became very, very, very popular. And this is the way a lot of people with the media, how they communicate now. It used to be the radio station or even the news a lot, but now people are going on TikTok and looking at podcasting. Even the kids now are becoming more familiar with podcasting through Twitch and through gaming. So this is the perfect avenue to kind of meet them where they're at. And it's very interesting because you can show them a lot of pop culture references that they're already connected to and say, hey, look, this is what you're about to do. And they get excited because, they connect with podcasting in their world of entertainment, media, and gaming. So it's a familiar platform, and it's totally intergenerational because now you have older folks that's listening to podcasts, younger folks. So I believe it's the easiest way to kind of get them to talk about their life and talk about themselves.
Yeah, so I want to make sort of a disclosure. I want to make sure everybody heard what you said earlier. Marcel has an audio engineering background. So he brings some talent and technical expertise to this that most of us don't have. But you don't have to be an audio engineer to do this. You can learn how to do it. There's some challenges, and we're going to talk about the challenges and try to help you out with that. But we really want to focus today mostly on not so much the technical aspects. If you'll hang in with us, Marcel is going to give us some tips to overcome some of the technical issues, but we really want to focus on the intervention aspect of what you're doing with your program. So Marcel provided us with a sample of the work that he's doing, and I want to share that with our audience now.
Welcome to Kuji Youth Radio,
where voices ignite,
community unites,
and dreams take flight. We're a youth-ran podcast in Baltimore City.
Park Heights to be exact.
Park Heights.
I think it was second quarter going on to maybe third quarter, and he was losing, and then out of nowhere, people started shooting, and everybody just started running around, going crazy. But look, at the time, that's what I'm saying. You couldn't get out. Where I was at, I had to run towards the gate. You couldn't get out because it's a metal detector. That's why it's so crazy. You wouldn't expect it to be shooting because as soon as you get in, you gotta walk through the metal detector. They check your bags and everything. I was supposed to go to another game, and it's just I'm not going. I'm not finna put myself up and so I can die. No, I don't know. It's just traumatizing because it's the first game of the season, and y'all already doing all of that. It just really shows what type of city you are in, and it's just you gotta be okay. Some people there, they wasn't even scared or nothing because they probably was already used to that. Me, no, I'm not used to this.
You not?
Okay,
you from Baltimore?
No, yes, I'm from Baltimore, but actually being in a situation.
To be honest, this is not new to me. This is not new to me. I'm used to this.
Oh, well, me, no. I'm not used to being actually in a crime scene. Okay, me seeing stuff and hearing it, but actually really hearing that, actually knowing that
being near it.
Yeah, knowing I could have died.
Well, we will see y'all next time. Thank y'all for joining in, and peace out.
This is where the voices of young people come alive to address issues that matter to us. From shining a spotlight on local positivity to advocating for change, Kuji Youth Radio serves as a beacon of hope for all who seek to empower and uplift. Join us, listen, and learn about our concerns and opinions.
Voices ignite. Okay.
It says community unite.
Well, what says what communities unite?
Where
voices unite.
That's yours. That's right here. It's Brandon.
Where voices. Yeah, wow, some powerful. Just hearing it just from here is just powerful. It's yeah, good.
Good job. That is outstanding. And I know because I've doing this podcasting and sort of starting from I had no idea what to do. I know how hard that is. If that you're doing a good job. These it's incredibly. You know what? I want to unpack this a little bit because there's a lot going on here. What jumps out at me at first is that you have got these youth talking about their trauma, the experience, their real life experiences, their trauma that they're going through in a very open way. Do you have particular reasoning why you're doing that?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, a Center for Hope, we're all about protecting youth and finding ways to protect them, and as well applying different resources and implementing different program ideas to how to protect them and their voice and their safety and things like that. So when it comes down to this particular program, it's the importance behind it was, okay, you want to hear it from what we call the horse's mouth. A lot of times, you pull the data up, you pull these reports from these different universities, the guidance counselor, the principal, the teacher. Everybody is talking about youth problems except for youth. And so this wasn't an easy feat by far, but getting them to talk about what they experience and hearing it from them, I think is the best way for us problem solvers to kind of figure out how do we meet them where they're at versus just looking at data. No, we're listening to them. We're hearing it straight from their voice. And there's nothing like that. So that's the important part. That's the part that we need to hang on to is how do we get them to speak about what they're experiencing, what they're seeing in their neighborhood or in pop culture or whatever is inspiring them. How do we get them to speak about that?
I love that. And you're giving youth a voice, an opportunity to weigh in on the problems that they're experiencing. And it is so important that we start including youth. Adults, we're designing programs to address violence in the community, and we're doing it often without any input at all, sometimes from the entire community, just to be honest with you. And then even more so without hearing from the youth themselves and what they need and what they want. And that's incredible. And I think it goes even beyond that, right? You're teaching these youth, you're helping them find their voice and teaching them to be advocates, right? For justice in the community. Is it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and like I said in the clip, you have two different views. That's why one thing I love about that clip, you have one youth that says, I've never experienced this and this is new to me. You got the other youth saying he's kind of numb to it, right? So, those are the two different dynamics you're going to be dealing with. And these people have to, we have to coexist in one space. You got those who have been exposed and those who haven't been exposed, those who have just recently been exposed to different violence. All of that is about creating the conversation. And if you can put the right people together in a room, and that takes time to get to know who you're dealing with, give them a few days, but understand the personalities of who you're dealing with before you just throw them on the microphone. Because you want different views in order to create conversation. If everybody agrees with the same thing, it's kind of hard to create that tension in conversation that also a lot of times leads to solutions. So, that's a formula that we use. But yeah, I might have missed your question, but
no, that's beautiful. So I just want to be clear for our audience. This isn't Marcel producing this show. This clip that we just listened to, that's your youth, right? I mean, they're running the soundboards and the video.
Absolutely. They're running the soundboard. Before we do every episode, we spend about 2 days in the classroom where they're not only looking at other podcasts and getting familiar with the flow. And so how do we stay on topic? How do we deal with our body language and not be fiddling and drawing on our hand because it happens, right? It's the times that it happens. So, we spend a couple of days, which about 4 hours of work that we spend on just them prepping for the episode. Okay, these are our talking points. This is the person that's going to lead the conversation. This is the person that's going to support the conversation. This is everybody's role. You're the engineer, the producer. They work in the classroom. They hand out the workbooks to everybody and make sure that everybody has the same questions and the same content in all of their books. So the recording engineer also knows what they're about to talk about because he has a book right in front of his face. So I want them all to be just as equipped to handle every single role in that studio room. So, the first couple of days before that episode is all about being familiar, understanding this is what we're about to talk about. There's going to be no surprises. And it is kind of lightly scripted, but they're just bulleted out. So they know to talk about these things and they come up with, okay, what do you guys want to talk about? And what are your pain points within this experience? And we talk about that.
So that's obviously not taking a day or two, right? I mean, to get to this finished project, how much time are you spending with each group of the youth that are going through your program?
Well, in total for the whole program?
For the whole program, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So I have 24 days with them, about 2 hours per session, a couple of days a week. So, we're building a relationship, and so what's that, 48 to 50 hours of work, we try to leave out the program on average. We just finished up a cohort. We have 6 episodes. The second program we're looking like we're probably going to close it up around 4 episodes. But yeah, so 4 to 6 episodes that we get out of each program, I think is good because it was my goal really just to do 3. But once we got into the swing of things, we understood, okay, we have to switch up the topics. Every episode can't be about trauma and violence and what they experience. We need to kind of create what we call lighter content or fluff content and allow them to do those as well, because that kind of keeps them going. So I'm not, we're not just doing trauma all the time, so it's important to break that up.
I would imagine, of course, the technical issues aside, it has got to be difficult to take youth that have been exposed to this kind of trauma and get them to open up and to share their experiences and to find their voice. How are you helping these youth find their voice?
Well, we have to become the student. First of all, if you're going in there with the kids, just know your first couple of weeks with them, you are the student. They are, they're the facilitators, and you're just learning from them. And you have to be patient with that and understand what are the things they care about the most? What are the things they like to do the most? We have an episode that we just shot a couple of weeks ago called What's Your Trigger? And they're talking about things in their life that trigger them to want to do something that they shouldn't do. So, understanding their triggers. One kid said, I don't like when people touch me. Somebody else says, I don't like it when somebody that don't know me yells at me. Right? And so you get to know these kids and you get to know, what they love and, the things that aggravate them and what do they like to eat. This is just about like a regular conversation. If you're getting to meet somebody for the first time, kind of get out of your mind that they're children, because our youth of today, they're different than the youth of 10, 15, 20 years ago. They're exposed to a lot of adult content now. We're not dealing with the regular 12, 13, 14-year-old that we were dealing with in 2008. These are different 12 and 13-year-olds, So keep that in mind and just know that you can talk to them like they're one of the homies. Like, hey, man, this is what's going on. You just make jokes and keep it light in the beginning, and then ease them into that conversation the same way you would do your best friend or your mother or anybody else. It's literally that. You got to get out of your mind that you're dealing with children, because that would make you adultify and kind of force content on them when really you just want to have a conversation to get to know who they are.
Yeah. What are some of the exercises or strategies that you're using with the youth as you're taking them through this process? I think you told me that you had them listen to music from the 90s or classic movies. What's that about?
All of the above. So yeah. All right. So I'll speak to both the classic movie thing and the music from the 90s. So I chose hip hop from the 90s because that was a time that hip hop was really well balanced in mainstream. So you had Britney's Got a Baby by Tupac, and you had, just songs that had positive information in there, like about the community that was like a really direct reflection of what's happening in the community, but also addressing it from like, how can it be better? So I'll pull up song lyrics because you'll notice that once we get into the microphones and the cameras come on, you'll notice that they'll start to clam up, and that's when the nervousness kicks in. So with bringing up these songs and song lyrics, we basically do our own version of karaoke in the classroom. What that does is help them use their diaphragm, help them pronounce their words better. It actually helps them boost their confidence. So now we're rapping these Tupac lyrics and going around the classroom. In hip hop, we call it a cipher. So each kid will literally rap a line and we go all around until that entire verse is done. And then the beat is playing. They'll hear their original song, and we'll keep doing that for about a half an hour until they actually got a flow without messing up. And then, once you got that, then you have, not only do you have a flow, then they're able to, like, what we call beats in music, and same thing, beats in film. They're kind of gaining this rhythm, and then when they speak, now you can, introduce the interview portion of it and start to ask them questions, and you'll see how portions of that activity actually kind of leaks off into the actual questions in podcasting. And so that's that part. So far as the classic movies, Major Key, I got that idea because I asked them, what do you guys watch on YouTube, right? What do you guys, what are the things that entertain you? And come to find out that they like watching reaction videos. And a lot of people, my age and older, are like, what is a reaction video?
Help me with that.
So a reaction video is when you have someone watching content and reacting to it. You have the camera that's facing the person in their reaction, and you might have the screen, that smaller screen, showing what they're looking at. So, and then they're just like watching a movie and they're like reacting and they're making jokes and they're talking about it. So I noticed that they all love watching reaction videos. So I said, okay, let's pull up some old movies and let's take little clips out of these movies. So normally what I'll do, I'll prepare the clips in advance, or I'll just kind of like cue it where I want that clip to play, and then we'll react to it, and I'll get their opinion on the movie. And I'll think about movies that have lessons, small lessons in them that they can connect with. And so, once again, I mean, these are kids that are exposed to a lot more than we can ever imagine. So a movie that's reflecting the things that they see every day is easy for me to play. But I also would play a children's movie. I'll do a Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory or something like that, or Little Rascals or something. Because there's these amazing jewels within these movies, and we can talk about it. Okay, what were the mistakes that you think she made before she turned into a big fat blueberry, right? And they'll talk about that because now they're saying, okay, I'm going to think about this issue. I'm going to think about this altercation before it becomes an altercation, and just creating a conversation. Before we get into that studio, I want to put their mind frame. I want to insert mindfulness. And that takes a few sessions in order for them to like graduate from any level of carelessness to mindfulness. And we do that through positive song lyrics, movies with messages, and them also speaking about issues that they encountered that they wish they could have done differently. And what about that? What would you have done differently? So using film and TikTok and the things they watch the most, even gaming, that's going to be my next step. I'm thinking for the next cohort of bringing in gaming videos, and trying to figure out a way to integrate that. I do have a background in curriculum integration, which in arts. So, I spent 2-3 years trying to find interesting ways to integrate arts into curriculum. And I think that it's definitely a great innovative solution to get youth to talk.
That's incredible, Marcel. Tell me what your goal is. What are you trying to achieve with it? What do you want these youth to have when they leave your program?
Well, first of all, interpersonal skills, being able to, let's just start at the raw base skill. Like the first thing that I know when you're in this program and you're doing this, the first outcome you're going to feel and receive is interpersonal skills, the ability to speak confidently about their feelings to someone else, to one of their peers. That alone is major, major, major. So let's start there. A great outcome would just for youth to, well, like I said, feel comfortable with speaking and their feelings, and then also their actions, and kind of saying, you know what, other than retaliating with my boys over this nothing, this means nothing. Other than me trying to get cool points by retaliating and doing something that I shouldn't be doing, how about I become a leader and I kind of take that leadership and move them into a different place with it? Because we talk about these things, and I would hope that with them repeatedly, there's a saying I heard before called "word of sound power." So being able to speak positive, a lot of them repeatedly, over and over again, it does something to your psyche, I believe. And I think just by doing that alone will help. It obvious it have shown with them kind of second guessing the choices that they make when they're about to make certain choices and say, okay, we talked about this before. I've seen this coming. And plus having people like myself that been through similar situations, that been in similar environments, so that they can connect. I can connect with them. I'm relatable, and being able to come in there and come from, well, I remember this. I made this choice when I was 13. I made this choice when I was 12, and so they know, like, okay, oh man, he's a real guy. He really came from where we come from, and that also helps. Is to kind of touch on. We all made stupid choices when we were kids, 12, 13, 11, and it's very important that we start off at kind of showing our flaws. You as a facilitator, as a person in there, you can't come in there all perfect, and you have to come out saying, look, I messed up. This is what I've done. These are the repercussions. This is what I went through, and let them know that you are not perfect, because that's also a lot of times what happens in a lot of these programs. They don't believe us and they don't believe you. They want to believe that you've been through things, that you have some tough things that you went through in your life that they can relate to. And even if they can't relate to your tough thing, at least just give them a story of maybe somebody else that is tough, so they know you've been exposed to it. You're familiar with their struggle.
Right. You talked about some exercises that you use to sort of communicate to the youth that people aren't perfect. And can you share that with us and how you're doing that?
Absolutely. Yeah, well, the people not perfect part, none of us, listen, we're all screw ups at the end of the day, right? Like, we all raise our kids and we all mess our kids up. There's not a parent in the world that hasn't jacked up something along the line of raising their kid, right? Mm-hmm. Like, nobody's perfect. The issue is a lot of times once we get into a space of leadership or facilitating, now, something in our psyche says, pretend to be perfect. I'm coming off saying, look, I got suspended in the 8th grade. I tell them a story about a situation where a kid kept picking on me, and I told him, look, man, if you touch me one more time, I'm going to throw this chair at your head. I threw the chair at this kid's head. I got suspended for 3 days. And then, of course, they laugh, oh, you threw a chair at his head. And I look back, and what that did was create this, I missed 3 days of schoolwork, right? Now I got this radar on my head while I'm in school, and it just creates a level of attention, and it can lead to more problems. And we talk about what we could have done different. So yeah, I'm going to definitely talk about some mistakes I made. Also during the classroom, while you're putting together the recording a podcast, or you're plugging the camera into the computer, or mess up. I tell mess up on purpose. Right? There's a lot of jewels. I know you know everything. I know you're the teacher. I know you're the facilitator. You understand how to plug this microphone in. You understand how to open up the software. You understand how to do an intro to a show. But pretend like you don't. Have moments where you mess up on purpose and let them correct you, right? Because now they're getting this sense of ownership. When they, you know how cool it is when a kid feel like they're correcting an adult. You'll see this. You see these endorphins, you see it go off in him like, oh, I showed him how to do something. He's a grown person. So that does something immediately to their confidence. So just leave room for mistakes, make mistakes on purpose, because they're gonna tell you you're doing something wrong, and just be okay with that. You know, they're not going to go and say, hey, my teacher doesn't know what he's doing. They're not going to, don't worry about your ego within this. This is not about you. This is about them. So the more you can remove your ego and your pride and mess up, the more they're going to learn.
So, hey, do you feel like you've talked about some of the social justice issues that youth have faced in your community. Do you feel like you're building advocates for the future that can speak to those issues in the community?
100%. I believe, maybe not all of them, but from my track record in doing youth programming for as long as I've been doing it, you're going to get a percentage of them that definitely hang on to your words. And now they know how to articulate those feelings now. You know, that's normally the issue. Is if you don't have a pathway or some sort of strategy to articulate what you're feeling, and these emotions can just turn into action without purpose, and they can blow up in the wrong time. But when you're feeling like, okay, this is wrong, this could be changed, I don't think this is right. You know, especially in these environments, you know, I like to talk to them about, do you feel as if what you're experiencing is normal? 100% of the time they say no, but we're used to it, right? So let's talk about that no before we get to the I'm used to it part. Why does it feel uncomfortable? Why do you think this is wrong? And then they start to kind of have these introspective moments where, oh, yeah, you're right. I shouldn't hear gunshots in my neighborhood, or I shouldn't have to deal with peer pressure, or I should not be scared to ride my bike and it get stolen, or, you know, all these different things. They start to understand, okay, this isn't right. So now we can talk about solutions and like, what do you think that could prevent some of these things? And you'll be surprised, like some of the answers they come up with about solutions, you know, and a lot of times there's a lot of it is peer pressure based. And coming from older people in their community on down, you know, and them just wanting to be cool. So, yeah, you can get an advocate out of these rooms. You know, definitely every class you'll find one or two youth that are like, that know how to speak about this and actually I have one now, he's starting to really take leadership in the classroom, and he's telling them, nah, be quiet, don't talk. Or, you know, I see him taking leadership. Awesome. I'm like, wow, he wasn't like that in the beginning. He was part of the, you know, throwing balled up papers across the room in the beginning. And now he's telling them, don't do that, because they're going to experience something. And they're going to experience something that they all going to enjoy. And the more you interrupt, the less time we're going to have to actually go into the studio. Because like I said, don't give them the studio day one. I mean, you can show it to them, but that's the incentive is being able to record and be able to add music and see themselves on camera. That is the highest level of incentive. They have to work to earn that. So hopefully in that pathway, they're learning about social advocacy. They're learning about self-respect, how to respect others, interpersonal skills, all of these things, and they're getting before they step foot in front of that microphone.
So you've talked about some of the challenges that you face in working with the kids and how the tools that you're using to overcome them. I want to be real with our audience. You and I had to have a discussion. We had to negotiate how we were going to demonstrate what you're doing. The initial idea was we wanted to bring some youth on the show here and let them speak for themselves, which is the right way to do things. But there's real concerns here with privacy and protecting the youth and making sure that we're taking care of the youth first. And so that's something you got to balance. Is you're giving youth a voice and teaching them how to speak out, and then how do we let them speak out while we're still protecting them and protecting their privacy. So I just wanted to be real with our audience, that playing the clip is what we found to be probably the safest choice for the youth, because we could, you know, preview the clip and make sure that it was safe and it wasn't something that was going to get the youth in trouble in their neighborhood or in the future in their life. And I appreciate you doing that, Marcel, and I appreciate your concern for the youth and there. So I just wanted to be real about that. If you're developing this type of podcasting program, you've got to put some thought up front and how you're going to share this information to do that. So that's one of the challenges that we talked about. I wanted to be upfront with our audience about that. And do you have any thoughts on that, on how you do this work?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, parental engagement. I have a relationship with every single one of their parents. Our partners have relationships with the parents. We do provide different community resources, even during the holidays now, gifts and food and things like that. Build a relationship with who they live with, number one. Invite them out to, just to see and hear what they're doing. That's a first step, right? So that it doesn't, nothing comes up surprise. Now, also, I try to refrain from using names. If they're talking about a situation, I was just say, say that guy, or, just try to refrain from using names and certain specific locations. They'll say school other than sometimes saying their actual school. So I'm working on it. Like I said, this is fairly new, and a lot of these episodes are not public. They're not public as of yet because we're still figuring out all of these legalities and things like that. But we're using the Kuji program as a pilot to kind of figure this out for the world, for the nation to kind of take this and say one day we might have a lot more youth content in commercial spaces. Once upon a time we did have platforms in the 90s where kids talked. We had TRL, we had Teen Summit, we had things once upon a time that even with youth music groups but those days are long and gone. And I think it's important we bring those conversations back, but now we have to figure out the safest way to do that. So I say start with the parents and just think about, if it was your child or your nephew or somebody in your family, is what you don't want to put them in danger in any way. In the clip that we showed, she was speaking about a football game where there was a shooting and there was hundreds of people out there. So it's not so much of a personal thing. She's speaking about something that a lot of people witnessed. This is not putting her in any kind of danger, right? So this was on news. Everybody knows about this, So, those kind of, it's important to kind of protect them in that manner, So as we're building out these guidelines, I'm hopeful that we'll have a well-oiled engine within the next year or two or three, just in the next 2 or 3 years, where we have a nice guideline for other organizations to kind of follow in the best way to protect them. I believe there needs to be an entire platform for this kind of work, honestly. I think that we need our own youth.com on a large federal or, just a large scale where it's that website is for this content. And that's just my opinion, but, we'll see how things go.
So, hey, I know this is new. You're still piloting and working through this. Do you have any success stories?
Oh my God, yes. One stands out particular. I've got a few, but one of the success stories I have is the parents coming to me saying, "Wow, I didn't even know my kid talked." Oh. Like he didn't say talk about his feelings. He was like, "I didn't even know my son spoke." Like, what do you mean you didn't know he spoke? He's like, yeah, he doesn't really speak to us. He doesn't really speak to his mom and dad, and he walked in and heard the episode playing and just sat there and listened to his son talk. And he was like, I didn't know this about him. They're discovering now. This was one of the students. I mean, this is a tough guy. He's a big guy. He was a boxer. He's a big, he doesn't talk his feelings, is this kid. So I decided to spend a lot of time to pry it out of him. And and talk about what you're going through, because and when you're in the streets and you're of the streets, you have this code of silence, right? And so it's hard to break that code of silence in a respectful way, which took some time. So by the time he started to talk about himself, it's like, okay, he's speaking about his weaknesses, which was very rare to hear his son talk about these weaknesses and things that he feel like he can improve on. And so he came to me and then thanked me for it, and that was incredible. That also kids coming back to me with ideas for shows. Like, look, we should do a show about this. Oh, this so and so just happened. We should talk about this. When they start coming to me with ideas, that's when I'm like, okay, you guys are really thinking about this. They're coming to me, bringing up links, they're saving links on their phone, showing it to me. It's showing their involvement, showing their commitment. These are success stories. And then coming out of it, It's just them signing up for other programs within their school that's connected to them using their voices. That's also great as well. So there's a lot of different outcomes that I'm starting to see. Like I said, we're only going on a year with this, but I'm already starting to see like some great outcomes from it.
Marcel, I can't help to think that a lot of any success that you've had is because of the passion you bring to this.
You got to be passionate about it.
And that's important for these youth. If you're going to work with these youth, you've got to be committed to them and you got to care about them. You got to love them. That's just the truth. So listen, we sort of promised our audience at the beginning that we'd give them some technical tips. Yeah. And you can learn how to do podcasting on YouTube. And I spent a lot of time on YouTube, just like your youth, learning how to do this or do this. But man, I've made some huge mistakes getting started. How do we avoid some of those mistakes? Just a couple, maybe your best tips to somebody that wants to get started and working with youth and doing podcasting.
Well, yeah, outside of the basic curriculum stuff we spoke about, like how to get them to speak and things like that. On the technical side, you got to make sure you have a decent microphone, and a recording interface, which is like a mixer. Headphones are always great because the engineer can hear if the microphone is too loud or too quiet. They got this term we got called going in the red, which even right now I'm looking at my voice. I keep going in the red. I feel like I'm too loud because I'm seeing my voice going to the red.
That's that passion I was talking about.
Yeah, so, going into the red means your voice is too loud. They need to turn that voice down. So making sure that it's not too loud. So you'll notice in any kind of podcast recording system, you got a light that goes from green to yellow, sometimes orange to red. Now, once that voice is hitting the red, it's too loud. It's clipping. You need to turn that down. So that's a technical, as far as audio is important. I'm not going to say audio is more important than video. They're both really important, but think of it like this. If you had horrible audio, can you do anything with this episode? Probably not. If I can't hear you, what good is this? So, but you can get away with having bad video and great audio, and we've had that problem before, where we had great audio, but the video came out messed up. You know what we did? I took a picture of them and then just sync the audio with that picture, and I added a little graphic wave file that's moving on it, and there's different softwares and things that can help you do that and add graphics to it to give them some kind of animation while the audio is playing. So yeah, you want to prioritize your audio definitely, and you want to make sure that you spend enough time with your youth and teach them how to use the equipment properly. We have 3 different cameras, and I normally have a youth operating all 3 cameras. And the camera literally is operated from the app on the phone, and they can jump from camera to camera. So when they hear a certain youth talking, they can click on that camera and it pops them on their face. And so, take the time out to make sure that they know how to use the equipment. But you will miss some things because being a facilitator of the program, you'll find yourself trying to be everywhere at once. And sometimes you do miss some minor notes. An episode that I just thought came out great. When we were playing it back in class on Tuesday, didn't realize that the kid was drawing on his hand the whole time. I didn't know that while we were in it, right? I could have easily told him, all right, stop drawing on your hand. But for some reason, I did not see him drawing on his hand the whole time. I don't know. I just missed it, So it was like, just you got a lot to think about. Yeah. But the audio, you need your microphone. You need your headphones, you need your mixer. And the good thing about podcasting is that you don't even need a computer to record it. Because a lot of these mixers, you might have heard of SD cards, right? Back in the day, we had floppy disk and CD-ROMs and stuff. And now we have what you call SD cards that slips right inside the back of the mixer. And you can just hit record, and it records directly to that SD card. And you can pop that SD card into a computer if you choose. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of free software out now that allows you to record podcasts and to make it sound better. And YouTube is your friend. Trust and believe. YouTube University is your friend.
And Marcel, thank you so much for your insight. Love your vision. Love what you're doing with the kids and helping them find their voice, shape their voice, and be advocates for themselves in the future. That's what's going to make this world a better place in the end. I want to encourage our audience, if you want some more information, if you need assistance with violence intervention programs in your community, look for the National Gang Center, search for that on the web, go on our website. We've got a host of resources there. We have additional podcasts and webinars that we're recording that are extremely helpful. I'd encourage you to go to YouTube and search for the National Gang Center, and we have a complete library there for you to look for. Marcel, thank you for joining us, and
thanks, Sean.
Be safe.
The National Gang Center is committed to informing, equipping, and training communities to prevent gang violence, reduce gang involvement, and suppress gang-related crime. For additional information regarding the National Gang Center, visit nationalgangcenter.ojp.gov, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or send us an email at information@nationalgangcenter.gov.